Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Now, when you hear the word gecko, I bet you immediately picture a tiny, common lizard clinging to your porch light, or maybe just hanging out in a terrarium. But what we're looking at today goes so far beyond that. The gecko isn't just your run-of-the-mill reptile, it is an absolute evolutionary marvel. We're talking about creatures that have spent millions of years refining a biological toolkit that has allowed them to completely conquer the planet, adapting in ways that honestly seem straight out of science fiction.
It really begs a massive question. How exactly did one type of lizard manage to spread across the globe? How did this single family of reptiles master pretty much every environment on Earth, from the most scorching, seemingly lifeless deserts to incredibly dense, humid rainforests, and yeah, even our modern living rooms? Well, to understand their global domination, we have to look closely at the wildly specific and sometimes downright bizarre evolutionary strategies they've developed to survive.
Okay, let's dive into this. To break down this sprawling catalog of gecko adaptations, we're going to cover 5 key areas: masters of natural illusion, surviving extreme environments, bizarre biology and behaviors, the global hitchhikers, and finally, the human equation. Starting us off with Section 1, Masters of Natural Illusion. This is all about the pure art of disappearing.
Take these two incredible creatures, both endemic to Madagascar. They use completely different tactical approaches to camouflage, effectively disappearing in plain sight. On one side, we have the satanic leaf-tailed gecko. This tiny lizard relies entirely on extreme visual deception instead of speed. It mimics a dried, decomposing leaf with unsettling precision. It even has irregular edges and simulated bite marks and holes. Then, on the flip side, the Mossy Leaf-tailed Gecko takes a totally different route. Instead of pretending to be a leaf, it perfectly replicates the surface texture of bark and lichen. When it presses its flattened body against a tree, it deploys this dermal flap all around its edges to completely eliminate any telltale shadow. It's like nature's invisibility cloak. Now imagine looking up into the canopy and seeing a lizard fly. Well, okay, glide, actually, but up to 40 feet. The Southeast Asian flying gecko uses extensive webbing between its toes, along its flanks, and even on its tail, which all acts as a natural parachute. It rarely ever comes down to the forest floor, using this incredible 40-foot controlled glide primarily as a lightning-fast escape mechanism from predators up in the trees. Moving right along to Section 2, Surviving Extreme Environments. We're going from scorching sands all the way to freezing scrub.
And this brilliantly illustrates how geckos conquer places that should be unsurvivable. The Namib sand gecko lives in an environment where daytime sand temperatures are completely lethal. So how does it not cook? It literally dances. It lifts opposite pairs of its feet off the scorching sand in a rapid, alternating sequence. This hot sand dance drastically reduces the heat transferring from the substrate right into its body. It basically buys the gecko precious active time so it can hunt for really scarce calories without frying.
Sharing that exact same brutal Namib desert is the web-footed gecko, and its survival tactics are just incredibly specialized. For one, it has oversized webbed feet that act exactly like snowshoes, distributing its weight so it can sprint across loose dunes. But the absolute most amazing part? It drinks the fog. It harvests drinking water directly from Atlantic coastal fog just by tilting its body up and letting the condensation run down its pale, almost alien-like translucent skin right into its mouth. You combine that with massive dark eyes for hunting in near total darkness, and you've got yourself a perfect desert survivor.
But, extreme doesn't just mean hot. The thick-tailed gecko of Australia flips the script entirely. While its topical cousins would become completely torpid, like essentially immobilized, in the cold, this robust little lizard remains totally active in the variable, seasonally cold climates of southern Australia's scrublands. It's a fantastic demonstration of their unbelievable thermal adaptability.
Which brings us to Section 3, Bizarre Biology and Behaviors. Get ready for clones, clicks, and tails. 0. Yep, that is exactly how many male mourning geckos are required for the species to successfully reproduce and colonize some of the most remote Pacific islands on Earth. 0. By dispensing with males entirely, they have solved the massive problem of how to establish a population when you're stranded all alone in the middle of the ocean. They do this through a wild process called parthenogenesis. Basically, this means the population consists entirely of females that produce genetically identical offspring, so essentially clones, without any fertilization. Every single clonal line acts as a self-perpetuating genetic snapshot. It's a natural cloning strategy that has allowed them to just spread across Hawaii, Fiji, Samoa, and beyond without ever needing a mate.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how geckos have evolved highly specialized uses for their tails. Sure, lizards are famous for dropping their tails, but look at this breakdown. The leopard gecko uses its thick, carrot-shaped tail strictly for fat storage to survive when food gets scarce. The rock semaphore gecko, it actually uses its tail to communicate, waving it in a complex visual gesture vocabulary to signal rivals out in open rocky terrain. And the crested gecko drops its tail to escape predators, but unlike a lot of other lizards, it never grows back, leaving a permanent blunt stump for the rest of its life.
Communication isn't always visual, though. Down in the Kalahari, the barking gecko creates an absolutely unbelievable acoustic event. Males dig individual burrows in the sand, and right at dusk, they start calling out. And these aren't just isolated quiet calls. Aggregations can reach thousands of individuals per hectare. They aggressively try to out-signal their rivals, creating this massive, rolling, pulsing chorus of clicks and barks that just carries across the entire desert landscape.
All right, moving to Section 4, the global hitchhikers. This is all about how they ended up conquering human infrastructure.
The Asian house gecko is arguably the most geographically widespread lizard on the planet today. Because of global shipping, literally hiding in cargo containers and our own transportation, it has managed to establish itself on every single continent except Antarctica and Europe. Their familiar nighttime chirping is now the literal background sound of households spanning the Pacific, the Indian Ocean Rim, and the Americas.
And this leads us to two very distinct strategies for taking over the human world. On the left, you've got the Asian house gecko, which relies on explosive population growth. The females produce multiple clutches of hard-shelled eggs year-round, which allows them to aggressively outcompete native island species for food and shelter. Contrast that with the Mediterranean house gecko on the right. This species is more of a quiet colonizer. It thrives far beyond its native range simply by exploiting our artificial lighting at night to hunt moths and beetles. So you've got two completely different behavioral strategies that both result in massive, accidental global domination.
Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, the human equation. We're looking at pets, poachers, and preservation.
This is a truly dramatic narrative. The New Caledonian crested gecko was genuinely believed to be extinct for over a century. But then, in 1994, following a tropical cyclone, a scientific expedition miraculously rediscovered living populations. In just a few decades, this amazing creature went from presumed extinct to being one of the top 5 most popular pet reptiles in the entire world. Talk about a comeback. However, human interaction and the pet trade represent a sharp, double-edged sword. On one hand, you have the leopard gecko. The captive breeding industry for this species is staggering, and it's highly sustainable, producing well over 100 recognized color morphs entirely within captivity. But on the other side, we have species like the stunning cave geckos of Asia. They are adapted to highly specific limestone cave systems. Their striking appearance, combined with those restricted habitats, makes them extraordinarily vulnerable. Targeted illegal collection by wildlife traders can effectively strip a wild population completely bare before authorities even know they're being poached.
So, the crucial point is this. 100% of the electric blue day gecko's wild population lives in a single, tiny location, the Kambosa Forest in Tanzania. And that entire area is just 4 square kilometers. It exists literally nowhere else on Earth.
And that extreme localization is exactly why researchers warn that a single significant disturbance event could devastate the species entirely. These intensely localized animals are facing compounding massive pressures from both the loss of their tiny forest habitats and the unrelenting demand of the illegal exotic pet trade. Their survival is hanging on an incredibly fragile thread.
Which leaves us with this final thought. From dropping permanently blunt tails to drinking fog off their own backs to literally cloning themselves to conquer oceans, geckos are the ultimate survivors. So the next time you see a so-called pest chirping on your porch, or you look into the terrarium of a pet, I really want you to ask yourself, what other secrets of adaptation do these ancient, resilient creatures still hold? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes open. You never know what incredible adaptations are hiding right in plain sight.